Mr. Toastmaster, members of the Chamber Toastmaster, and most welcome guests. If you ask somebody what the most difficult part about naming somebody is, it's taking a name and making it matter for a story. And if you ask a developer, they'll declare that naming a baby and naming a building are two comparable tasks, both done before they may have reason to be. It may take years to secure the land, months to draw the proposals, but what promises are there that what's within it, what's within that building will tower above the skyline when we have yet to know the reason for its being? My name is Christian Samuel Nisbit, and today I will share you my story with three buildings: the River in Byron, Minnesota, the Sears Tower in Chicago, Illinois, and the Plummer Building of Rochester, Minnesota. My hope is that by the end of the speech, you'll be able to learn just a little bit more about me through the narrative stories of stories higher than Carnegie could ever comprehend. The first building, the River in Byron, Minnesota, you will not see off Highway 14. It's buried just a little bit beyond the frontage road. This deep red brick barrack of a building is where hard rock bands performed once a month. It's also where I got my start in spoken word poetry. I would perform in front of hard rock bands. Teenage audiences expected bands would make their fists fly into the air. Well, I spoke of narratives like Mary Shelley and figuratively like Fitzgerald. After I stepped off the stage, I would witness these bands I'm now closer to, more closer than blood to breath. Bands like Silverside, End of December, Senseless Beauty, I will always remember. What if I didn't go to the River, though? Would I have gone to Columbia College, Chicago? Would I have seen the second building, the Sears Tower? Buildings that symbolize a city, especially when they symbolize the second city. They have history embedded in their beaming. The Sears Tower started developing in 1970 when developers took cigarettes out of their pockets and arranged them into stacks that I now see when I walk past Wabash to class. Columbia College Chicago is an art school that gets accused of having highfalutin students, especially when you have writers within a room, you have cinematographers within a room. Everyone believes that their work is great and we all push each other to that greatness. At Columbia College Chicago, my fondest memory while studying creative writing and acting is that the professors I study with are credited not by their credentials with degrees or where they went to school, but by how involved they are in the Chicago creative community and how engaged they are with the students, pulling them into it. In my degree with creative writing and with acting, one of the things I wonder about is whether or not when that structure, that degree is handed off, if it will share the story of what really happened in Chicago, the story of walking beside professionals from various buildings, walking beside bands and performers that I idolized on posters in my room when I was younger, or authors that walking on stage to the Barnes & Noble, picking up their book and then now seeing them walking across the street. At Columbia College Chicago, the best thing about it is that you become immersed into your creative career. As I ride the Amtrak back home to Rochester, roaring closer to the third and final building, the Plummer Building, the gleam seen from the 103rd floor sky deck will follow me home. On October 28th, 1996, 1 minute before noon, I was born. 1 minute before the Plummer bells chimed their lunchtime tune. My wavelengths and the Plummer Building bells' wavelengths traveled at about the same speed. Maybe that's why I have such a close association to that building. The Plummer Building, Mayo's Gothic cathedral of a clinic, is where healthcare professionals with years of experience, years of education, showcase that education for the purpose of serving. The Plummer Building reminds me that all these years as far as school are concerned, with high school, was going to RCTC for school with, then going to Columbia College from sophomore to senior year. The purpose within it is learning to serve, taking that education in order to serve others. Writing began as a way for me to exchange experience, for me to exchange my own experience to associate with somebody else. But then it quickly became that the experience that I share is also the experience that someone else shares. And these experiences, they're not meant to pull us into solitude, but meant for us to share. If you're traveling, when the sun falls below the horizon, perhaps you look towards a building to know that you're on the right path. What if you're more inclined to directions rather than buildings? You're still looking at a name. You're still seeing the name, and then when you arrive to that building, you see the story. What if you were guided more by Google? When you lose connectability and charge, perhaps you will see a building and you will know you're closer and closer to that story through providing the 3 buildings of the River in Byron, Minnesota, the Sears Tower in Chicago, Illinois, and the Plummer Building in Rochester, Minnesota. My hope is that you now know a little bit more about my narrative story through the story of buildings. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.